Yeah, we're up.
Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday night, and Leon and I will be coming to you live today to have a very serious conversation. We're going to be talking about the wealth gap in America. This is one of those conversations where we're going to actually present some numbers to you, and you will absolutely not believe how far behind African Americans are from their white counterparts as it relates to the wealth gap. And we're going to actually tell you the reasons why during this live today. Not only are we going to give you the reasons why, we're actually going to show you data from some research that's been done on why the wealth gap exists, why it looks like it's here to persist, and the number of years. We're actually going to give you all the projected number of years it will take for Blacks to catch up to their white counterparts as it relates to the wealth gap today during this live. And we're going to be, talking about it from a standpoint of opportunities, investing, where you save your money, and then also your networks. And really, the interest rates will matter. Compounded interest will matter. You should get your family together for this live. And normally we don't say those things, but as much as happening in the world, and when we look at George Floyd and the environment we're in right now, we're forgetting about COVID, believe it or not. But it's 19,000 new cases this weekend, and so we're gonna what effect will all this have on our money when the smoke clears? And it's not pretty. It is absolutely sad, shocking, appalling, and surreal when we deliver these numbers to you during this live. It is one of those things that I'm emotional about. And this is why Leon and I are so passionate about what we do with Investing Education Academy. This is not a plug. I don't care where you all go to improve your lives, whether it's with us, somewhere else, but you need to go improve your education on money immediately following this live. And when you hear it, you will understand why. You will absolutely understand why. Now, with that being said, if you have questions as we're going along our way, please ask us questions, but I suggest you share this. I suggest you record this. I suggest you send this to family members. It's unbelievable. It's going to be absolutely unbelievable information. So, Leon, you can jump in.
Yeah, so, everybody, as Brent said, knows what we're going through right now with the George Floyd situation. Police brutality, inequality, and the like. One of the biggest ones that, this is, Brent and I, we deal with finance. Investing Education Academy is about finance. The social aspect of this, we all know, we all feel, whether you're white, Black, Asian, whatever, Hispanic, whatever, you feel it in some way, shape, or form, either through your personal experiences or someone you know. But the part that on the social side, the part that has led to a lot of this is actually on the economic side. And it's a lot of things. There are a lot of things that there are a lot of reasons behind why things are the way they are. A lot of it has to do with economics, and it's we're not going to go down the road of why those economics are the way they are. That's a whole other discussion. But a lot of it is economics. And one of we came across some just astounding numbers. Brent and I both were just shocked when we saw, we both knew African Americans were behind the white counterparts economically, but man, these numbers are shocking. So I'm just gonna kind of jump into it now. So first off, define some definitions. So by the term, when I say the term, we use the term wealth. Wealth is defined as ownership of assets. So things like homes, businesses, stock, bonds, things like that. Assets, crypto, whatever you want to call it, but ownership of things that appreciate in value, assets. So that's what we mean by wealth. The other thing is, so the data we had is through 2016. So if Brent and I ever say today, we're talking about effectively today. The data we have goes stop to 2016, but it's within 4 years. So we really mean
while you're going through the list that you're talking about, do you want me to put up that section that shows home equity, real estate, farms, stock, or do you want me to wait?
No, not yet, because that has kind of a different that'll be the next one. So that'll be the second slide. But so I'll jump into the numbers now. So first astounding number is that African American households today have a net worth on average of $140,000. White homes, yeah, I know. White homes, on the other hand, have household wealth of $901,000. Now think about that.
Let me jump in real quick with that. All right, so when you guys hear this number, you hear 140,000, and then you hear roughly 900,000 in difference in household income. You have to think about the number.
No. Not household income, household wealth, ownership of assets.
Well, you got to think about the number one, the top 1%, right? And how much reach the top 1% have. And then you start, I know some people are watching this to think about, what about Oprah? What about the Jay-Z's? What about these people who are, hitting that $1 billion mark? If they're climbing, think of the people who are above them, helping them make the deals, what they're making. So you have to look, you can't look at it just like, okay, we made it up to this point. It's proportionally, if we made it there, who was working that deal on the other side of the table? How much did they make? So now, although we're pushed forward, the gap, you're going to see what's going to happen with the gap. And I don't want to spoil it, but just you have to think about that, because I know some of you are watching are going to think, oh, but we know plenty of people who are doing well. Just stick around and listen, and please share this. Please share this.
So good point. So what Brett was talking about was known as variability, or essentially like standard deviation of return. So what we're talking about is the average, right? We're talking about the median, basically the midpoint. There are people that are making that have wealth of millions and billions of dollars that are Black, and also there are people that live in poverty. So there are people that are well above that $140,000 net worth, but people that are well below that. So yeah, we're talking about the average. Yeah, I mean the Jay-Z's of the world and the Bob Johnsons of the world, they have billions and millions, and there are also a lot of people in poverty that we may know, but we're talking the average. So yeah, as Brent said, don't think about this as the data is flawed. No, the data is exactly right, but we're talking about the average, just taking everything and just averaging it out. So again, Black household wealth, 140,000, white household wealth, $901,000. So their wealth is 6.5 times. So white wealth is 6.5 times Black wealth. Now, the reason that's a problem is because think about right now, like COVID, right? COVID hit. Tons of people lost their jobs, right? Black homes on average do not have that cushion to absorb loss of income, because remember, wealth is ownership of assets, right? So that's either stock, a business, real estate, typically on average for most people, right? Well, if you only own 140 grand in assets, there's not a lot of room there to really sell off things to cushion the blow, why you don't have any income. You go and sell some stock, your average net worth is 140,000. Okay, how much do you need to feed your family for the year and pay your rent and yada yada? Like 140,000. Some people on this live make that and way more than 140,000. Just think about the value of all your assets is $140,000. You have no room for error. If a medical emergency happened, you lost your job. We have the whole COVID thing happen. There's no cushion. There's just absolutely no cushion. Now contrast that with somebody, the White household is worth $901,000. They can go for years. I mean, and theoretically go for years without having any income, because again, they can sell off assets and cushion that blow and mitigate some of that loss in income because they have assets to sell. So that 6.5, the White household that have 6.5 times the wealth of Black is a huge difference. $140,000 in wealth for Blacks, $901,000 wealth for whites. Huge disparity. So what that's called is, go ahead.
And so also you think about this on average, right? The consensus is that if you're single, you should have 6 months worth of income on hand at all times, right? Then if you're married, you're supposed to have 3 months worth of income. The thought is if one spouse goes down, then the second income kicks in to maintain the household expenses, with the thought that the household itself is never living beyond the means of at least one earner's salary. That is flawed for some of us because we don't know basic budgeting. And basic budget, we don't know our numbers. And if you don't know your numbers, you talk about, an attorney, Beverly Winstead, who's a tax attorney, when she goes in to meet with people, sometimes they may not know their basic numbers for their family. Like, how much do you all keep in passive income? What's passive income for? What about discretionary income? What's that? People don't understand that these are monies that we need to have available. So if in case of emergency, and additionally, like some people, they swing for the fences when they invest. They get a little bit of money, swing for the fences. I'm gonna go buy this real estate. They have no cushion. You already at the max from what Leon was saying. And now you went and invested in real estate thinking, I'm waiting for the hit to come, right? But it doesn't, because COVID just hit. And you're sitting on all this real estate and the renters can't pay, and you aren't liquid enough to ride this out. So it's possible that some people listening, watching this, end up losing their house back to an investor from a white family, and this is not a bash, you know, live. Like this is a real live. Like this is a real live. And so it's not anything against anybody, but it's the truth. And so when we're talking about this, we're not talking about it in anger to anybody, any class or race that has assets. We're saying Black people have to catch up, and you have to change your mindset to work fast, because in this environment, will you lose assets or gain? Is that something to think about while we're talking? So my bad, Lee.
Yeah, nah, you're not.
We're gonna do this a lot during this live.
Yeah, like Brent said, yeah, I mean, this is not bashing white America at all. We're just presenting straight, hard data and facts, and just showing how far behind African Americans are in the U.S. in terms of wealth. So, so just to recap again, Black wealth, $140,000 in household wealth versus $901,000 for whites in America on average. So, like you said, what that creates is the wealth gap, right? And what's another thing, so that was stunning in and of itself. I didn't know the wealth gap was 6.5%. I didn't know, sorry, 6.5 times. I didn't know, I thought it may have been 2, 3, 4 times. I didn't know it was almost 7 times difference, right? The even more stunning side is that we're going to show you that over the last 60 years, that wealth gap has not moved. So we're talking 60 years. The wealth gap 60 years ago for whites, Blacks was 7 times. So back in 19, so let me actually, so yeah, over 60 years. So let me just read this for you. In 2016, the wealth gap for roughly this, in 2016, the wealth gap was roughly the same in 1962 as it is today, right? And 1962 was before the Civil Rights Act, right? So in 1962, the wealth gap was 7%. So white families had wealth 7 times that of Black families, right? So 1962, then 1964 came the Civil Rights Act, right, which was supposed to, you know, kind of put us on the same level, give us more opportunity, and the like. It hasn't happened as far as wealth has not done a thing, because again, in 1962 the wealth gap was 7 times. In 2006,
pull it up.
Yeah, well, you can bring up the slide, but that slide. So in 1962, the wealth gap was 7 times. Whites had 7 times the wealth of Blacks. In 2016, the wealth gap was 6.5%, effectively 7%. So we're saying in almost 60 years, the wealth gap has not moved. Just think about that. In 1962, the Civil Rights Act hadn't passed, right? So we're in the same position, African Americans are, that we were prior to the Civil Rights Act. We have not made any progress underneath the Civil Rights since the Civil Rights Act went into effect through today. Has made no progress. It's exactly the same. 7%, 1962 wealth gap, 6.5% wealth gap in 2016. No movement. Ridiculous.
And, you know, in the insanity of that whole statistic and that number, the thing that is main drivers are looking at opportunities, education, where we save our money, and then also inheritance. And these things, it didn't just start overnight. So you know, we go back to 1500s, 1600s, when the slave ships started really floating. We're not going to go down that road, but you know, again, the mindset and the gap has started then. And so you think about the now being plugged into their economy and trying to catch up on their system. We have to change the way we think and the way we approach business. So when we talk, we're going to actually give you the number for everybody who watches this through. And again, I hope you're watching this with your family. You talk about this. We're going to give you the estimated number of when Blacks will catch up economically, the wealth gap in the future. We're going to give you the date, projected date. And this, the research is listed above, like on the screen.
Okay, so this slide here, to me, is the mother lode, right? So what I want everybody to pay attention to. So okay, so there are a bunch of lines on this chart, but the main thing you want to look at, actually, the main thing you want to look at is the solid red line, and then just behind that you'll see that dotted blue line. Right. Yep. Those two. Yep. Those two you want to pay attention to. So the solid red line is tracking essentially white wealth in 1962, right? The dotted blue line is tracking Black wealth in 2016, right? So as it goes up and to the right, basically what it's tracked. So what this is representing visually is anytime that that blue line meets the red line, that's when relatively speaking, 2016 black wealth has now caught up to white wealth from back in 1962, right? So as you see over time, from the zero line at the bottom all the way to the right, it kind of fluctuates up and down, up and down. But right about at the end, which is tracking to on the far right, tracking to 2016, they're right about even, right? So the amazing thing about this thing, what it's telling you is that black wealth today has just now caught up to white wealth from back in 1962. I'm gonna say that again.
Yeah, please do.
Black wealth today, 60 years later, from 1962 to 2016, 2020, black wealth has just now caught up to white wealth from 1962. We are 60 years behind white wealth in this country. 60 years. It's taken 60 years just for us to catch up where they were 60 years ago, right? So imagine where their wealth is relative to ours today out in the future. I mean, it's unbelievable that just now, we're just now catching up to where they were 60 years ago. Unbelievable. This right here was, to me, was the biggest, probably the biggest thunder for me, that we're just now catching up to where they were 60 years ago.
And
to me,
for me, it really goes back down to what are we really willing to risk in regards to our money and how we save and also how we give to our kids. No, we're not there yet, but later on we're going to start talking about inheritance and we're going to talk about where we're saving our money. But as you think about what you're providing for your kids, for your nephews, for your nieces, for your godchildren, for somebody in the community, like what education are you giving them? Like in regards to understanding money, and that's the education. I know PhDs, and we'll get every level of education to watch these lives and listen to them on our podcast that's coming. But in that space, what are you educating the next generation on? And recently, I'm all, I understand the anger that exists right now and, where people are. But what are we doing to economically change our position? Because with economic change comes political change. And when those things start to occur, we can actually to change this curve. And right now, the projection on where this curve actually shows some light for us, we're going to tell you later on, but you will not believe how many years into the future it's going to take for us to catch up. And that's only catch up if these factors change. It's not catch up if things stay the same.
Right.
So, how you engage, and this is why we created Invest in Education Academy. Again, it's not a plug. It is the reality. We have to get into the market. And we have to get into the market because we're the largest consumer. But what do we have to show for? Where do we save our money? Are we trying to be like, I want to have my hands on it. I don't trust banks. I don't think the stock market is rigged. It's rigged all day, but you know what? I can show you where I played in this rigged environment and I've made 160% rate of return on my money. What was your rate of return? I've been in the space where I've seen somebody who started investing with these lives. Only Leon, how long ago we got the phone call? Like, he said 50%?
I mean, so we only been doing this, a month and a half, 2 months? So it was a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
2 months ago, one of the people who started investing in some of the stuff Leon and I were choosing, which we get no payment from. At this point, none, zero, zilch. And this person is already at 15%.
Right.
Off their investing and appreciative life of their money, they've already shaved about 26 years in 6 weeks. So because they were willing to change. So, I mean, we're going to keep going, but to understand where you save your money and the compound effect of money is so real. If you have your money in a bank account right now, you're looking at essentially having 72 years before your money doubles. What is your life expectancy? Really, like how old are you? Whoever's watching this, please, and I'm not saying type it, to yourself, whisper your age. No, seriously, whisper, everybody watching this, everybody listening to this right now, whisper your age. And then say 72 plus 72 after that. And then write down the number or do the math in your head, whisper your age, and then say plus 72 after that. And that's what's going on if your money's in a bank account. And that's how long it'll take for it to double. Now, if you can just get to 10% interest, your money's going to double in 7.2 years. So everybody, again, whisper your age in your head and then say plus 7.2. And please tell me what you would get. Don't tell me, again, you don't have to type it. But if you say 7.2 at the end of that, plus 7.2, does that seem more realistic? Is that more hopeful? Because I'm guessing that it is. And that's just getting to 10%. We've seen people do better than that. We've seen people do worse, but honestly, I'd rather take the chance than to play it safe and know I'm saying plus 72 at the end. So
that's a good, so that point you just made about taking a chance. So the next slide we're going to show you. So real quick, just to recap this slide. So again, this slide shows that African-American wealth has just now caught up to the wealth of white America from 1962. It's taken 60 years for us just to get where they were in 1962. So let that sink in. So Brent, you can put the next slide up. So this slide is
before civil rights. Before civil rights, we're the exact same spot in the wealth game as we were today as we were in 1962.
Yep. We're in the same position we were prior to the Civil Rights Act.
And for all of you all, I'm sorry, Lee, just let me get on the soapbox. For all of you all who have your money in the bank or in the bonds and CDs, and you may be getting 2%, that's 36 years before your money doubles. So again, this is going to be the theme. You're going to hear me say this constantly during this live. Whisper your age to yourself. You don't have to write it. Whisper your age. Think about your spouse's age. Think about your friend's age. Think about your children's age. And then say plus 36. Do you want to wait that long for their money to double, for your money to double, for your friend's money to double? Do you want to wait that long? Because the people creating white wealth is being created because they're not waiting that long. So
and to that point, so like you said, if your money's in a bank that's earning you 2%, remember, inflation is roughly 2%, 2 to 3% per year. So if you're earning 2% in the bank, you're just treading water. You're not making any money, right? So, and then, God forbid, inflation actually goes to 2.5 or 3% a year. In that year, you've actually lost money. If your money's sitting in the bank account right now and you're earning 0.0000125%, you're losing roughly the same number as inflation per year. For inflation 2%, you're losing 2% of your money per year. Because 3% a year, you're losing roughly 3% of your money per year. So saving in a bank isn't even saving; it's actually losing money. It feels safe because you actually don't see your money. You look at your account, it's 10 grand today. January 1 is 10 grand. Also at the end of the year, it feels good, but your buying power has gone down by 2 to 3%. Yeah. So you don't physically see your money go away, but try to go buy some groceries or go buy a car, go buy a house. You won't be able to buy as much house or as many groceries as you could January 1 on December 31st at the end of the year. So your buying power, inflation eats away at the buying power of your money, not actually the money in your account. Just know that. Don't think that looking at your account, you're going to see your money drop. No, your buying power goes down.
It's a cancer to your money because we don't see it, so we don't know. Right. And so right now and I know it's some people, somebody's uncle was watching this, somebody's aunt's watching this, and they had this thought, and you might have heard it come March, like middle of March. See, that's why I never put my money in the stock market. Mm-hmm. Somebody said that, somebody's family member, or they said it, somebody watching this. The market's already started to see recovery, even with all of this going on. Mm-hmm. And so people have been gaining, serious gains in the last, Amazon went up, 46% in the last few months. Yeah, and so it's these thoughts that because everything seems bad, that the end is coming. But what if it doesn't? Where's your money when the next year comes? Where's your money when you see your grandkids for the first time? You're like, I want to leave them something. Please listen to this the whole thing, because we're going to tell you years. It's going to take. We're going to give you the number that if things were to get corrected today, how long it would take for us to still get to a equality in the wealth gap.
And so one of the big things that we're going to talk about in a minute, but one of the big reasons that contribute to our kind of us being behind economically, and other minorities as well, is what they call unequal returns. So like Roger said, you know, if your money is sitting someplace where it's not earning at least inflation, remember, your money's there, but their money is in real estate, is in the stock market, it's in bonds, it's investing in private equity. You know, they're taking risks, right? And by there, I mean white America. They're actually out there taking risks. Now, I will say that one of the things the article pointed out was that, you know, when you have less money, you take less risk. And I get that because, you know, again, if you only have $5,000, you're not going to go put on something that's really risky. That's all the money you have. And I understand that. And that's a valid point. But the kind of things that we're trying to teach through IEA is that when you take calculated risk that you actually, you essentially know what your risk is, you know, kind of the range of a risk, and you know what to expect, right? A lot of things that people fear about the market is like, oh my God, the market could drop. Well, the market dropped 34% in February, March, right? A lot of us in the game who we knew that could happen, so it wasn't a big shock. Like it wasn't like the end of the world. And as we showed you in other lives, that we showed in a graph that, you know, every drop is always a buying opportunity. So anytime things tank like that, yeah, it hurts. But if you know what's going on and then you buy those dips, you eventually over the next few years profit hugely. I mean, just real quick, if you follow the picks that Brent and I have, not to your own horn, we're just saying this, look, you know, get in the market and make some of this money, take a little more risk. If you followed some of the picks Brent and I have made over the last 2 months, we have picks that are up. I think our lowest pick is down like 3%. And we have multiple picks that are up over 40 and 50%, right? So do the average, right? So, I mean, our average return right now, I think is roughly 20% in 2 months. Now, just imagine that money you had sitting in the bank, had you put it in the market and made 20% in 2 months. You may say, you know what, too risky for me. And I get that, I get the fear, but that's the type of mentality that leaves us kind of where we are now. While we're 60 years behind white wealth and white money, is because one, we don't understand, and two, we have a lot of fear in the market. And that's why we're hoping with IA. And like Brent said, go anywhere, go find the education anywhere, but get educated to understand how these markets work. Drops in the market are not in the world. They're always buying opportunities.
And you know what, Lee, let's go here for a second. The next one down, we're talking about home ownership. You know, rates are at an all-time low. Are we bunkering down? Like, you know what, I'm cool in my apartment, I'm gonna stay here, and I don't know where I'm gonna live next year, so I really don't want to put my money in anything. Well, what happens if you buy a house and you decide to sell? Then hopefully you take some equity. What if you didn't take, well, okay, what if I'm not gonna be here long enough and I don't take equity? Well, hopefully you can rent the house. Well, what happens if you can't rent the house? Then maybe you wrote off the loss during the year against your taxes, because you can do that when you own a home. You can't do it when you're renting. So it's not just one way to skin a cat, if you will, but the thing is to start getting more intelligent about how we move our money. And to talk about real estate right now, there are a lot of people who have rental properties and the renters can't pay. Have you talked to some of your friends that you know are in the real estate game and say, you know what, let's create a fund, and we're going to incorporate that fund, and we're going to start helping out other business owners or other people who invest in real estate. They can't divest right now, but they need money to stay afloat until the market recovers. It's a risk. It's a risk. But if it already is property owned, then you don't have to go through the loan application process. You don't have to worry about your debt to income ratio. You can help out a friend. You can help out an associate. You can just make a good business move. And these are things that you can do without, this isn't saying come through Investing Education Academy for that. We're saying it during these lives. We pour everything into these lives, people. We don't hold back. We don't try to save, well, we save some, but we give you a lot of good stuff that you can use right now. And that's not to say you come do it through, hey, how do I do it? Like put on here, like, in the comment section, I'm looking for a real estate attorney. I'm looking for there's a tax attorney, Attorney Beverly Winstead is commenting like feverishly in here. Lawrence Hibbert they're one of the top fastest growing tech companies on the East Coast for African-American firm. They were just featured in Black Enterprise. And so they're on this live right now commenting. And so there are people in this space. You can just put out there what you need, what you want to do. You never know what you might get. So okay, one piece too. Vehicles. Yeah. A lot of people have vehicles and they got these vehicles whenever, and they never thought to refinance them right now. You can do that. Additionally, you can take what's called a secured loan out on your vehicle. Did you know that? Some people didn't, some people did. Now let's say right now, secured debt is always cheaper than non-secured debt. So if you have, you know what, actually, I'm gonna stop because I'm gonna keep going. If anybody wants to take this conversation over to Investing Education Academy after this is over, or tomorrow, if I see your comments in the Investing Education Academy, we can have a conversation about other ways to make money like today.
Right. Okay. So this slide here, so what this slide shows is, and this comes back to what I said earlier, it's called unequal returns, right? So what this is showing is that African Americans, on average, have their assets, have their money, and they buy assets that don't give anywhere near the returns that white America does, right? So the first one, so on the left-hand side, now what this is the percentage of Black and white households and where they put their money, right? So the first one is home equity. So 64% of white households in America, on average, remember that everything is on average, have 64% of their assets in their home, in their home equity, right? Whereas Black America is 38%. Okay, so white America is almost double with home ownership there, as far as assets. Other real estate typically is real estate investments, right? Rental properties, Airbnbs, things like that. White America, 21% of 21% of white households do that. Only 7% of Black homes do that. Farm was kind of surprising to me. I was like, the farm thing kind of threw me off, but I mean, it's still an asset. So farm, 13% of white households invest in farms, only 2% of Black households. Stock to me was huge, right? Because this is the game we play. This is our world.
Well, hey Lee, real quick, let me go back to farms because you made that comment. Farms have some of the best tax incentives of any type of real estate. In addition to farms having some of the best tax incentives, to acquire farmland sometimes is cheaper because it's an asset that can be reacquired easier and it's assumed to have more value. Let's move away from all that, right? And we just talk about farms. If you're growing your own food and you're starting to eat organically and eat correctly, that's going to add to increased health. Increased health is going to take away so many other factors of stress, of doctor's cost, and to have a cleaner way of living, a more sustainable way of living off your own land, in addition to selling off the abundance that you have, because nobody who owns, well, like I said, it's very unlikely that a person with the farm, everything they grow, their family consumes. Mm. And so now you have another source of revenue because everything additional that you're growing, you can sell. So not only just think about farms from the fact that the tax incentives are better than almost any other real estate platform out there, but you can then use the land to make money, to sustain your family, to eat healthier, to have better health, to then drop the medical costs that you may have incurred, live longer. And if you live longer, you have a longer period of time to accrue wealth, right? And so it's a lot to farmland. It's just not an asset. That's all I'm saying.
And then the thing about farm is, again, in our community, African American community, farming isn't something that we grew up on, that we learned about, that we're taught, that we even own in large numbers. So that's another reason it was kind of a surprise to me. Okay, so let's just recap. So real estate. So just look at real estate, home equity down through stock, right? You notice how on the white side, their numbers are big, right? 64%, 21%, 13%, 32%, relative to the Black side, where those numbers are low. I mean, three of those four are under 10%, right? Now we're going down and think so. Home equity, real estate, farm, stock, those all pay high. Those are high dividend, high revenue assets, right? Now look where the numbers increase for Blacks. Checking and savings account. Brent and I keep saying over and over again, if you have your money in a checking or savings account, you're earning absolutely nothing. You're literally losing money because of inflation.
Can I say it again, Leon?
Huh?
Can I say it again real quick?
Yeah.
Take a moment, everybody. Savings accounts right now, you're probably topping out about 1.5. Like maybe 1.5 in interest rate, right?
No. In a savings account?
Maybe, yeah.
No, that's savings account is high. Now, the highest ones I've seen now are 1 point, because remember the Fed lowered rates, so it's like close to 1. But
I'm trying to be good right now. I'm like,
okay, I would say 1.5. All right.
So I'm trying, like I'm saying, maybe it's a credit union, it's online, there's no physical branches, it's an HSBC type of setup. So if that's the case, well, let's say 1.5. So you're now talking about having, and I'm doing the math right now. So right now, what I want everybody to do who's watching this is share it, number one, because we need to know. 2, whisper your age to yourself. You don't have to say it out loud, whisper your age to yourself. And so if you are in a savings account, checking account, you're not getting anything. So if you're in a
Right.
savings account and you're getting 1.5, it's going to take 48 years for your money to double. And maybe nobody's ever said this to you out loud. So Leon and I told you today, so you will never leave one of our lives saying you didn't know. As of today, you know, whisper your age in your head, call somebody, talk to somebody, say your age out loud, and then say plus 48 on the end of that. That's how long it takes your money to double. Your money, not mine, your money. Because that's not where my money is.
At 1.5%, right.
1.5%. And most of us are getting 1% or less in the savings. And so if that's the case, whisper your age and then say plus 72. And whatever it equals, you don't have to post it. You can just say it. Baron just wrote on here that his account is 1.25.
There you go. Yep.
So, Baron, since you said it, let me give you your exact number, how long it's going to take your money to double. 57.6 years. So, Baron, whatever your age is, you whisper 57.6 years plus 57.6 years. And that's when your money will finally have doubled. People have been following Leon and I for 2 months now and been over 10%. That means while you're whispering 57.6, they're whispering 7.2. They accelerated their financial space by 50 years over other people right now. Over 50 years. That's
great. And that's by being in the market. That's what this whole thing is about. It's putting your money. All of us need to put our money, get away from this fear of the stock market. And I mean, if any really, I mean, the two biggest drivers are stock and real estate, typically in America for investments. A lot of people lean towards real estate. It's a very high capital, high intense business where stocks have a way low barrier to entry, and the returns are a lot more predictable than real estate.
If you guys do have stock, I mean, one of the things that used to be, this used to be a very real mindset, right? If my money's in stock market and I need it, I can't get to it. We've heard it. We've heard people say it. We've been in those conversations. That doesn't exist anymore. And then the other issue became, well, if I put my money in stocks, then it's all getting eaten up by commissions. That really doesn't exist anymore. You will have to go search for most brokerage firms that actually still charge fees for trades. So if you are saving, we're not saying you go aggressive in stock, but even if you want to keep some money, like in case something comes up, you can liquidate a stock and have the money within like 2 days. And if you really, really, really need it, have it wired to you. And that's $15 charge. But I promise you made more in interest by having it there than that $15 I don't know why, but for some reason paying that $15 hurts like hell because people believe if I would have just had my money in there, I wouldn't have to pay that $15. It makes no sense.
Yeah, but on that money, you made 30-40%, and you're upset about $15. Yeah, we got to get away from that. So yeah, okay. So back to that chart now. So again, yeah. So the point I was making is that if you look at from stocks up to home equity, the black side, the numbers are essentially below 10%. The white side, they're well above 10%, right? So now you go checking account. 85% of households, white households have their money in checking account. 45% of black households have their money in checking account. Now, you might say, well, 85% of whites have their house money in checking account. That's a low interest payment, right? The difference is, look above that. Remember, they have 32% in stock, 64% in home equity, and 21% in real estate. So they can afford to take, not every investment is going to pay you 10, 20, 30, 40%, right? So they can afford to have some of their money in a safer investment vehicle that's going to pay them less because they're balancing that with higher end returns. Whereas on the black side, African Americans have their money essentially in nothing. I mean, it's percentage wise, they're not earning return on anything. I mean, most of that is under 10%. Home equity is the only thing above 10%. So there's really no money being made for the African Americans on the right side. So below that, this one that irks my nerves, the core, is vehicle. I hope everyone knows, as soon as you buy a car, it depreciates the minute you drive off that lot, right? So 58% of African American assets, 50% of African American households have their money in car loans. Again, now look at the other side, 87% of whites do too. But as I said before, they're at least balancing that with other higher return assets above that, like stocks, like home equity, like real estate. So, but you look at our side, black side, 45% checking account, 58% vehicle. These earn nothing. I mean, a vehicle is actually losing you money, and a checking account is at best you're breaking even. So there's no return there. Other savings, again, 26% of households for whites, 14% for blacks, and then debt. I mean, this is ridiculous. African Americans have their money in nothing that's earning any serious income, but yet 44% of households have massive debt, right? So there's no return being made, and then we have debt. This leads hugely to why we're in the position. Well, one of the reasons we're in the position we're in. Now, to jump to the other side.
Hold up, Leon. Before you jump to the other side, two things with vehicles too. When you look at the difference between, black households with businesses, and this is in 2016, I'm sure these numbers are different now, but when you have a business, what you use your checking account for is different. And when you have a business, how you write off the vehicle that you drive is different. And also the reason why you have debt sometimes is so you can buy assets that are appreciating and are higher value. So this article doesn't go into talk about what type of debt, which I really wish it did, but I will feel confident saying some of the debt that we're seeing on both sides, but disproportionately on the white side, is debt for positive earning investments, businesses, real estate, joint ventures, whatever it might be.
And the position that African Americans are in, right? Like, yeah, as you said, Brent, the debt on the white side, just guessing, at least some of that, a big portion of that is probably income earning debt, like Brent said, for a business, something that, maybe they took out a loan to buy stock. Who knows? African American side, again, based on the numbers and the position that we're in right now, I bet a lot of that debt is negative debt. That's not earning income. That's actually costing African American money per year. So remember, the left side is the percentage of households, black and white households. Now the right side is the percentage of assets, right? So the first one, home equity, 31% of white assets, the total assets that they own, all their money or whatever, is into home equity. African Americans, 49% of their assets are in home equity, which there we win. We win a bit, which is good. Remember, this is just total the percentage of the amount of money that they have. So other real estate, now that's where it's going to get back to kind of on the left side. Other real estate, which is typically rental properties, 70% of their assets go to that. 9% of our assets go to that. Farm and our business, 70%, again 9. So again, they're doubling us up, doubling African Americans up on the percentage of assets that are going into income producing assets. Where our numbers are still below, most of our numbers here are still below 10%. It's ridiculous. Look at stock. 13% of their assets are going into stocks, only 5% of ours. The stock market, again, over the last 300 years, returns on average 10% a year. The market essentially gives you 10% for doing nothing. I mean, of course, you have to pick.
You're assuming the risk. They give you the money for assuming the risk. And
right.
We have people on here right now that have invested with Leon and I, and are part of IEA, who just we've been friends with forever. And I'm not asking them to put out their business, but if they were to tell you what their returns are as a result of just having conversations that led them to kind of get past the hurdle of, okay, yeah, the market is for me, or I'll give it a try, they've done pretty well. And for everybody who's watching this, is your first time engaging Leon or I, we do not care whether you invest with us or not. We don't invest people's money. Let me be clear about that. But Investing Education Academy, we educate you on ways to invest your money. We don't. I used to be a licensed stockbroker. I am not anymore. But I'm gonna tell you the truth. Many of the stockbrokers that I met, they still didn't understand how to manage wealth. They knew how to get clients in to sell, but they didn't understand how to explain to people how to build wealth. And that is a very different place. And we have to get to even we talk about a certain type of capital all the time. Leon and I, we have this little joke where I start and he finishes, and I'm gonna do it right now. But if you all have this type of what, Leon?
Risk capital.
Then you should be in the market to at least get the experience. You don't need to be in the market to swing for the fences. And this is what I see happen too. We sometimes will talk to people and they get like hype and they go like watch a video, or they go to a seminar somewhere, or They hear about this new way to flip stocks, and all of a sudden that's all they want to do. And we're like, yo, it's a holistic approach you can have to the market. And it doesn't have to be this uber aggressive new style of strategy. You can buy and hold and still do incredibly well in the market. You do not have to all of a sudden become this savvy investor and change who you are overnight. It's not necessary.
Right. And like Brent said, the issue with that is in investing in the market, it's not money. Like, again, day trading is literally gambling. It's literally gambling. And on a future live, or at least in the I'm going to break down why that is literally gambling. It's based on time. But we're talking about wealth. This live here is about generational wealth. And wealth is not made day trading, right? I mean, nine traders out of 10 lose in day trading. It's made by systematic processes in the quality companies and/or quality assets. That's what these charts are about. What it's showing you here, and that's what, on the left-hand side, it's listing what those assets are. The top portion are what are known as quality assets that pay good returns. The bottom half pay essentially nothing. Just to jump back over to the chart now. So as we see, home equity, blacks 49, 31 for whites. And again, remember, this is percentage of the assets it's a percentage of the money that they have, that they divvy that money into different assets, right? So 31% for whites into their home, 49% for blacks of their assets into the home. Other real estate, 17, 9 for blacks. But what this is showing you, again, blacks were below 10%, whites are above 10%, but they're also double our number. We're at 9, they're at 17, which is effectively double, at 18. Stocks, I mean, look at this. Only 5% of African-American assets were in the market. 5%. Like I was saying before, this is a mechanism that will give you on average 10% a year for doing absolutely nothing. Just put your money in the market, let it sit for 20 years. 10% a year on average. Crazy. Now we go down again to checking and savings. Now this is where the numbers for African-Americans starts growing again, just like it was on the left-hand side. But this is where the returns are almost zero. Checking and savings account, as we said, you get nothing, 0.0001%. Whites, 14%, blacks, 12%. Again, they can afford that risk because they're on the assets above, they have higher percentages, the ones that are paying them more. So them taking on some assets that don't pay that much isn't that big of a deal. Vehicles, again, look at this. 6% for whites, 14% for blacks. Our assets we're in a depreciating asset double the size of whites. It makes no sense. Other savings, again, which is probably similar to a checking, maybe like a CD or something, which again pays nothing. We're at 9%, they're at 5%. Effectively, we're double them on an asset that's not paying much. And then finally, debt. Again, we're double. They're at 3%, we're at 6%. Yeah. And so what this is showing you again is that, again, this is what they call unequal returns, and it's one of the things that has led to African Americans being in the harsh economic position that we're in. And we're not blaming African Americans for this. I'm not saying it's their fault. It just is what it is, and part of it's education, and part of it's lack of money and or assets to grow. And the reasons for those are beyond the scope of this video. But what we're trying to show is that we've got to get away from the bottom half of this chart. We got to get away from savings accounts. We got to get away from vehicles. We got to get away from debt. We have to take more risk with our money in the things like homes, real estate, farm business, and stock. We have to. If not, this, the situation we just explained earlier, how we're 60 years behind whites in wealth, will never change unless we change something like this chart.
We're just now catching up to white wealth from what it was at in 1962. Like, think about that. We're just now catching up to white wealth from what it was at in 1962.
Prior to the Civil Rights Act. So again, nothing has changed in 60 years. We're living like, at least economically in some aspects, like we were prior to for African Americans prior to us having civil rights. Think about that.
And so, Leon, when we were talking, some of the people in our crew actually posted their numbers. So David said he was at, I wrote it down, 12% interest since March. So if Dave's at 12% interest since March, and assuming, now this will not happen, but we're just assuming for purposes of this, if you listen again to the podcast, if you're listening to us live, that he kept earning that. So his rate of return where he would see his money double would be 6 years. So if Dave whispers his age, only thing he has to do is say +6, And that's when his money's going to double. And at that point, it kind of doesn't matter how much he's investing. He's going to catch most people regardless of how much they're putting in per month, because he's playing a little more risky, but he's at 12% interest. Now, Malcolm posted his, and since I guess this year, I'm just gonna say this year, Malcolm, I don't know when it started, but he said he's at 22%. Mm-hmm. So with him being at 22%, that takes let me say this slowly. Everybody listening, close your eyes, whisper your age, and then say plus 3.27 years. Every 3.27 years, Malcolm money would theoretically double. Mm-hmm. Every 3.27 years, his money would double. So that means 3.27 years from now, the money that he doubled will start this new track to double again. So then the money that he doubled in 6 years, 6.4 years, will then be on the track after having doubled twice to double again. Mm-hmm. And when you really do the math on what that means for your money, it's unbelievable. And I mean, these are people we know. These are people who are part of IEA. And it's not that me and Leon have some negative like picks, but you know what? Like if you invest intelligently and you kind of ride it out, we have fewer negative picks than the positive ones. The market is no guarantee for anybody. But you know what? I much rather have watched this live, started to change my mindset, maybe jump to the Investing Education Academy group and start some chats. Or let's even talk about this. It's not about separating white and black. Maybe you have some white friends doing really well. Call and talk to them about it. Like, you know, why do you do this? How did you come up? What made you start doing? What makes you ask questions? There may be some secrets in there, like, you know what, we can apply that. Mm-hmm. Because the biggest accelerator to life is mentorship. I don't care where it comes from. Like if it comes from us, if it comes from whoever, but how are you also talking to your kids? So one of the things in this article, it talks about multi-generational wealth building. And Leon, can I show this slide real quick?
Yeah.
Very basic, people. Like we talk about life insurance is one of the best ways to leverage money that we as a community do not use. And I'm gonna show you the numbers behind it. We're gonna show you some policies. And so when you're not getting, I've heard people say, oh, if I get insurance for my children, it's like wishing they die. No, it isn't. It's helping them have an amazing life later on in when they mature. I've heard people say, oh, well, you know what? I want to get them some clothes this summer. Some clothes that they're going to grow out of in like a week, 2 weeks. It makes no sense to me. And for you all watching, if we don't change the way we teach our kids, we definitely won't catch up on this gap. This gap will probably get wider because what's happening right now between COVID and the killings and the police brutality and the inequality in the government, we have to try harder. We have to be better because clearly the system is not trying to help us out. It is not. And so unless we take it upon ourselves to educate one another, to talk to each other, to spread your best skill set to those around you, you know what? That should be the theme for today. Spread your best skill set to those around you. Whatever that skill set is, spread your best skill set to those around you. Because that's when we start to win. It's people out here, they're spreading their worst. They're spreading negative energy. You don't want that. So I'm gonna show you life insurance and what it can do for kids, right? Leon, make sure you can see this when it comes up. Can you see it?
Yep. Yes, it. Yep.
I'm gonna skip all the fluff. And I'm gonna go to the numbers. So this is a policy for a 3-year-old that a parent would pay $660 a year for, right? So if a parent's paying $660 for the year, it's roughly $55 a month. Many parents blow $55 a month on their child for clothes. So this is $55 a month for a child. Now, remember the word multi-generational wealth building, because that's what we're about to show you. If you were to have a limited pay life insurance policy, and what that means is you only pay it for a limited amount of time. Again, I'm gonna say it again. A limited pay life insurance policy for a 3-year-old means that if you're only paying for it for 15 years, when they turn 18, you no longer put any money into that policy ever again. but they are insured for the rest of their lives. And we're talking about, some people right now facing parents with sickness right now. It might be COVID related, it may be something else. Some people have recently lost parents, and I know this weekend people have lost parents. And is there any inheritance coming? And it's not a greedy thing. And our culture sometimes makes us feel like greedy if you think that. It's not greedy. It's real. Because how do we change this gap if we have limited resources? We leverage money. This is how you leverage money. So if you were to put the money into this life insurance policy, you would instantly have $67,000 in coverage over your child, right? Now, when they turn 18, you've put $9,900 into this policy since they've had it. $9,900, right? So let's all remember that. If somebody can type that in, $9,900. That's how much you put into this policy, and you never put any money into it again. So at age 18, you're guaranteed to have about $7,000 in the account. So almost about $2,000 off of what you've invested in it will be in cash. And that means if you just hated the company, you changed your mind, you no longer want to do this, you can pull your money out. If you pull your money out, they're going to send you a check for $7,300. But the insurance has grown. It's worth $72,000 now if anyone were to pass away. So it went from 67 to 72. Like, so what's going to happen with this life insurance? This is interesting. Let's keep going, right? So Brent, what are all these zeros? If you're listening, you won't see it. If you're watching, you're going to notice that in the third column over, it starts to go to zeros. You just see zeros right here. All these zeros mean you're no longer putting any of your money into this life insurance policy. But if you notice, the guaranteed cash value keeps growing. Now, it's not breaking records. I would definitely not substitute this for the stock market, I'm gonna be honest. But this is a layered approach to creating an overall portfolio for your children. So, okay, this $55 a month, I'll kill that at the bar. I'll spend that on vacation. Mm-hmm. So why not do it this way? And now we're talking about multi-generational planning, right? So let's keep going. Your kid is now 35 years old and life is real. And maybe you thought life was going to be easy peasy, but it's not. And they have kids of their own, but they don't have life insurance. Well, you just guaranteed that you're leaving your grandchildren if something happens to your son or daughter, $90,000. $90,000. You put in $9,900. And that's them at 35. So let's say they have a nice long life, things are pretty cool. All right, they're in their 70s. They still don't need it, but they forgot about the policy. They're going through some paperwork and they find it. They're like, oh yeah. Then they have about $195,000 in total that could be in their account in cash. About 93. It's about 93,000. They're guaranteed to have no less than about 41,000. It's actually at age 70, it's 106. There's 106,000 that could be the total cash value. But if something happens to them at age 73, your grandkids now get $172,000, and you put $9,900 into this. If they just had a situation where they had a health scare and now their kids are in their 20s and they're like, oh, we don't have the money. And then they can go into this policy and say, you know what? I think mom, dad had a policy. Let's see if we can use some of the cash value. Oh my gosh, it's at least 41,000 in here, but there could be up to 106,000. That's pretty cool. So let's say you meet somewhere in the middle and it's like $60,000 in there. You put $9,900 in. This is how we leverage. This is multi-generational wealth building. And so for those of you all who are watching, like, oh, what about me? I'm an adult male. I'm 40, let's say 30, 32, 35. I'm 35. What could I do? Well, if you took $200 a month and you put it into a whole life insurance policy, you will instantly have $183,000 that would be left to your heirs if you passed away. And we're talking about inheritance, right? This skips probate, is uncontestable. The beneficiary is who the money goes to, period. So now we entered this COVID environment. Our kids are freaked out. You're probably freaked out about your parents. You might be freaked out about yourself. Do you have life insurance? Do your parents have life insurance? Do you know? I don't know. So because right now is the largest wealth transfer in history for them.
Right.
For white America. The largest wealth transfer in history. So maybe when you see some people who don't seem that affected by COVID because their lives are changing for the better. I mean, it might be happening. For us, it's terror because, oh my gosh, if something happens to me, my kids have no money. If something happens to my parents, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm gonna bury. I don't know how. All these questions and stress and anxiety kick in, and it creates desperation. It creates bad decision making. It causes us to stay in jobs. It causes us not to want to risk our money in the market because we need to hold on to all of it because this is all we got.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we got. And if I lose this, I lose everything that my kids can have because there wasn't proper planning. And if you're
and that point comes back to the point, the original point when we started was that the average wealth in a black home is $140,000. White home, the average wealth is $901,000. So as Brent said, if an emergency happens like now with COVID and everybody losing their job, yeah, you may look at some white folks and they may be like, yo, they may have lost their jobs. Their parents may have lost their jobs and they're not tripping because again, they're sitting on almost $1 million in assets that they can leverage in a time like this. This Brent showing you here, life insurance policy. This is something that can be leveraged. This is an asset that we don't have. I mean, I probably bet that 99% of people on this live do not have life insurance. Probably never even really heard of how life insurance works.
And they probably have it at work. And we just talked about 40 million people filing for unemployment who thought, oh, well, I have a job. I have life insurance in my company. I'm okay. And then what happens? You lose your job. Oh my God, I'm coughing next week. I'm sick. You're so much more stressed when you're sick because you're actually scared of dying, not because you're scared of death, because you didn't leave anything. You didn't leave your family in the right condition. And I mean, this is a very real conversation. It's not a threat, and I wish it on nobody, but it is very real. That stress, it caused you not to get well. Because your whole time you're panicking not only about living, you're panicking about dying.
And about finances, and about your children, and about your medicine, and about your food. And, it's all the way around. And when again we do not have, and like we're not blaming Black Americans, we're not blaming African Americans. We're just pointing it out. We're just making the point and giving you the numbers behind, as Brent's showing you here, something like a life insurance policy is actually an asset. We all know growing up, life insurance was almost considered a joke. It was considered a ripoff. It was considered a way for insurance companies to make money. But as Brent is showing you, again, educating, that life insurance can actually be used as an asset, and a pretty big asset too, to go from investing $90,000 to then in maybe 20 years having, $40,000 to $100,000. I mean, that's a serious asset.
Yeah. And then I had a phone call, and Leon, you weren't even on this phone call before we did this live, but I was talking to one of my colleagues, Joyce Sistrunk of PG Services. It's a accounting firm, and she was like, Brent, I really think that a lot of people in our community didn't buy life insurance before because they would get swindled, or when somebody passed away, they would find some exclusion. That's because a lot of us were trying to save our money, and we were buying insurance with cheap companies, and we were buying it from agents that didn't know what the hell they were talking about. Like, it's people out here to become a life insurance agent is not difficult, but many agents don't understand a viatical agreement. They don't know how to get money out. They don't know how to use a life insurance policy as a supplemental retirement plan. They don't know that strategy. They can sell you policies all day. I can sell you policies all day. But if you start talking about wealth creation strategies behind life insurance usage, oh my gosh, well, let me get my upline, let me get my manager. And then they start selling these products that are crap products. And because we feel like we may have had trust, it's like, okay, I'll just get it. And then 2 or 3 bad things happen, and the rumor mill goes, and all of a sudden we're tainted for 60 years.
Right.
Like, you have to understand, like, even for this adult male who gets life insurance at $200 a month at age 35, they're talking about when they get to retirement age, which is, let's just say 65. At 65, they're guaranteed to have $69,000 in this account. That's not maybe, that's not we hope, that's guaranteed because it's a reputable company. This company's been in existence 125 years. I think they've not paid out a dividend in maybe 2, and their policies pay. But then there are hundreds of like really good companies out there, thousands, I should say, but hundreds. But anyway, you can find a good company, and this isn't the only one. You have to have an agent that knows insurance. But this is leverage right here. Something happens, and you're like, you know what? I can't afford this insurance anymore. You're going to get a check for $69,000. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you're talking about getting a check for $128,000. And if something did, God forbid, go wrong, and you have to leave your children at age 65, they're getting 250. Oh no, actually, it's total death benefits $300,000 now. It's $300,000 is going to transfer, when originally it was how much? It was 182. And now you're leaving 300,000 in addition to your stock, in addition to everything else. So now it's not this, oh my gosh, how do we just pay for the burial? And I've seen people send like cash apps out, like, you know, my parents passed away, can anybody help? And did you have that conversation with them about life insurance? Have you had it with a real conversation with yourself? Because honestly, if you switch this life insurance policy to even a term, that $182,000 at $200 a month for somebody 35 is probably going to go up to about 2 million. No, probably about 1.6 million.
Still a growing asset.
And eventually term will go, but if you can get a 30-year term and you're 35, that term is going to expire until 65. So that means between that 30-year period, you had $1.7 million that was going to transfer to your heirs if something happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
These things, these are ways you leverage money, and we are not leveraging money properly. In addition to the market, we've had people in here who have talked about their returns. We didn't pay anybody to do that. We didn't even know they really were going to do it. But this is how you create an asset mix. And that's what really, when you pull back all the layers of what Leon and I are talking about, it's having a proper asset mix, because you got to have real estate in. And I mean, growing up, I had to look at other people for those. I had to look at Leon's family saved my life. And I've said this a number of times. And for me not to get emotional, especially with everything going on, I'm not going to talk about it now. But watching his family, you know, understand assets at a very young age in a different way than my family understood assets, it was like, oh, you could really, this is pretty powerful stuff. Like, and it's real, it's work. It requires very hard work, and it requires consistency, but the payoffs, they don't go to just you, they go generational. What assets do you have that really can make it to your grandkids? And that's the question I would love for some people to think about. What assets do you have right now that you know if something happens, it's so abundant, it can make it to my grandkids? Because one of the things when we talked about white households being at $900,000 in wealth, if you take that, right, and you get a basic return, Leon, I think you said the market's been doing about 10% since.
Yeah, and that, like over the last 100 years, like
so
10%.
Let's say you just get 10% on $1 million. Let's just call it $1 million. So you're getting $100,000 every year. That's more than most people's income. Sure. That's not even touching the original asset. So not only are they now getting $100,000 annual income, they're now keeping the original $1 million asset still in the family, still growing.
And it's compounding. So now you're going from $1 million. Now you have $1,100,000 that's going to then give you 10% the next year, and it compounds and compounds and compounds. And that's the power of, you know, compound interest. It's what I think Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. I mean, it's how white America has gotten so rich. They buy assets that give them a strong return yearly, but then they know the following year that interest is that they're going to get that return again, but it's going to be more than the previous year because they had more money. And these are things that we don't do. We have our money in cars and in debt and in savings accounts, things that are earning us nothing and actually losing us money in some instances. So these are things we got to get away from, man. I mean, this situation we're going through right now, it's not any fault of our own. I mean, we all know the circumstances behind it, but investing is one thing. Like Brent and I were talking, and we had a discussion yesterday, and we were kind of a discussion about how can we help? What could we do? And I was saying I want to lean more towards the investment side. And I was saying investment is our main way of helping. Brent was like, well, no, we can also help on the employment, the income side too, the employment. which is true. I mean, as we grow our company, the different companies that we have, yeah, we can hire more, but that can only help a subset of people. The information that we're giving can help the world, can help everybody. I mean, millions of people watching this. It's just they don't have the information. So investing is one way to really, really change your situation. Not overnight. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It may not happen in 10 years, but it'll happen over time if you're patient and gradual. And as Brent said, you then have something to hand off to your kids, which then helps build that generational wealth, something that we do not have whatsoever, as we showed from the stats earlier.
Leon, I gotta say this, Lynette Hunt Johnson, I salute you. Like, she has her 13-year-old son watching this. She says she's absorbing it like a sponge. And really, I feel like Leon and I are just a conduits. We dress down today on purpose, because it's the solemn thing. It's not to be celebrated. Like, this is sad, and the market is right there. I've argued with attorneys and this attorney a few years back about the market, and he just thought it was rigged. Since the time I talked to that attorney, I've seen accounts go to 130% rate of return since the time I had the conversation with him, which was like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody who's really thinking like, whoa, I've seen stocks go to zero. So
that we showed.
if you watch this, I've shown you one of my stocks that went to zero. But if I showed you the return overall in my personal account, you're talking about 186% rate of return over the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with one that went to zero. So you got to imagine what that's doing to my average. So when you all listen to this, this is what we want to go viral. This is some energy that I think needs to be infused into right now, where we can start to say, well, how are we planning? Because I'm telling you, the stock market is immediate. Like, you can immediately start investing in it for your future. So in that space, the stock market is immediate for your future. When you get life insurance, it's immediate right now. If something happens, if God forbid the world doesn't work out the way you anticipate and your kids are here, tomorrow they have an asset that they can live off of and pay and not worry and move through life. As one person's on this live right now, I know there was a client of mine years ago when I was really like a true financial advisor, and they went to go buy a house. And when he was in his 20s, we talked about life insurance being an asset if you buy it properly. And he called me and he was like, I'm trying to get this house. I don't think I'm gonna qualify. I need an additional asset. And I was like, did you tell him about the life insurance we got? And he was like, yo, can I use it? I was like, yeah, you had it long enough where you start to accumulate cash in that particular cash column. So although it's still a liability from the payment side, the asset that's in that accrual of cash is an asset. And he used it. He got the house. He now used that house to pay for the house that he is in now, which is ridiculous. But it's that prudent planning from a very young age, thinking about what our future was going to be and being willing to jump in. Like, we might not have went on a fellas trip or been at the bar one weekend because of it, but he was able to provide for his family, and he still owns the policy. And he got into the market with, like, way back then. And I think, Leon, he bought Amazon. We talked Sunday. He bought Amazon 6 years ago when him and I first started talking about stocks.
His return is through the roof.
It was like over 400%.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's over 400%.
So not only did he got the life insurance, which is an asset, helped him buy a home. He also has made over 600% in another asset, which is stocks, over the last few years. Perfect example of get your money out of the checking account, out of buying cars, out of credit card debt, and put it in interest paying assets, things that pay you money. And I was going to say one thing. Your home that you're living in, you really shouldn't think of that as an asset, right? Because assets pay you money, right? Every month you write a mortgage check to that home, which is taking money out of your pocket. Now, everyone needs a place to live. I'm not knocking home buying. I mean, we all have to have a place to live. I get it, but I just hate when people sit there and say, "Oh, I'm doing well because I own a house." But if all you own is that one house and you're paying $1,200, $1,500, $2,000 a month towards that house, it's really not an asset because you don't own that asset. The bank does. It's not your asset. You don't control that house. The bank can come at any moment and take that asset, that property away from you. It isn't until you pay that house off that it's then an asset. In the meantime, while you're paying on that, it's really not an asset. Now, you have a rental property that's then giving you free cash flow every month. That's an asset. So just my spiel on your personal home, when people thinking that they've made it, they're rich now because they own a home. No, that's not the case. That's not technically an asset.
And it's very in regards to the equity that you accrue inside of that house doesn't take effect until you execute. And so, like, if a flood comes through or you're in tornado area and that house gets damaged before you cash out, then what? You know, it's then you collect the insurance money. Maybe it's enough to pay off your loan. And so you really have maybe that's what I'm saying, maybe. And also, so think about the fact that when you own stock, and I've seen people do this, they get their first like few shares and it's during a good period of time, and they walk around telling everybody how much they made. You didn't make anything yet. until you sell it. Yeah, until you execute the sale and the funds are transferred into your account, do you make money?
Right.
So it's unrealized gain. In addition to, I see people who have stocks and then they get all woe is me, and they're like, man, I tried it and I lost all this money. I'm like, well, when did you sell it? And they're like, I didn't sell yet. I'm like, well, you didn't lose yet. And they want to argue with me. And I'm like, you haven't had a loss. You have not experienced a loss yet. It's an unrealized loss until you sell the asset. So that stock, and I say that because there were people in March, and I'm saying this for a very strategic reason. For all you people that came in, let's say February, and then all of a sudden beginning of March hit, and you saw it go down 30%, you're like, oh my God, I lost. And you're on the phone, you're spreading these rumors and these lies. And it's like, I lost all this money in the market. Yes, you didn't lose anything. The value of your account dropped. That's what happened.
You haven't lost anything because you haven't recognized the loss yet. It's basically what they call like a paper loss. It's not really until you sell it.
Yeah, and we can understand emotionally what's not happening and what really is happening, maybe we will stay the course. And that's why Leon and I are telling you these things. And that's why we're saying we're going so far into it. And honestly, the numbers have been climbing. So, I mean, I'm happy that you all are hearing this. I'm happy that you all are staying with us. I'm happy that you're putting the kids in the room with you saying, look, let's listen to these guys. Now, when we jump off, have a conversation about it. And we got to tell you the number of years it's going to take us to catch up. This is insane. So as the wealth gap is now, if we corrected a large majority of it today, and we continue on a path where there's some resemblance of correction, we as African Americans would not catch up with white America until 2,250, according to this survey. And we'll post the link to what the research article that we read. And read it. Please join us in Investing Education Academy. Let's have a discussion about it. Everybody's in Investing Education Academy. Keep it civil, respectful, or you will get kicked out. But I want to say that number again. If there is some correction, this isn't like if it continues the way it is. If there is some correction, the African American wealth would catch up to white wealth in 2,250. That's 230 years from today.
230 years to catch up to white wealth right now. And remember, everyone, if you didn't see it earlier, go back after this and watch it. But we showed earlier that that number rings true because, as we showed earlier, as of right now, Black wealth has just now caught up to the wealth of white America back in 1962. So we're 60 years behind white wealth right now. We're just now caught up to where they were in 1962. So it would take another 250 years for, as of right now, as Brent said, if those things were corrected, to catch up to white wealth. That number's got to change. And
I don't know about you all, but I can't wait to 2,250 to catch up to anybody for anything. And so, Leon and I talked about what is it we can do. And so, I mean, in the Investing Education platform, we're gonna make some changes to some of the thoughts we had to be more inclusive of just everybody. And we need a mix of people there. We don't need just an entirely Black platform, an Italian Hispanic platform, we need to start talking and figuring out what everybody's doing that's working, and then just create best practices. And you know, in that space of best practices, we then need our African American brothers and sisters to exercise those best practices.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who are just scared of the market and scared of things they don't know. Come get a buddy. Come join one of our groups. There, I mean, we're very soon we'll be up live, fully functional. And I'm telling you all, we have to change this. And it's not about exclusion or blaming. It's not blame. It's the reality where we are and how do we fix it. And unfortunately, I'm gonna say this, unfortunately, some of the people that watch our lives can't even conceive that the wealth gap is that big because they're doing okay. Like people in our circle, they're doing all right. They may not remember or maybe never experience what it was like to be to stand in line at the church to get cheese, or to stand in a line at the church to get powdered milk. I do. I remember that. I remember standing in line for jelly. You know, I remember standing in line for butter. And in that space, I now know what it's like to one day open a statement and see a 200% rate of return on investment that I did, and think, oh my gosh, this is legal. This is real. And you know, I had, and this is my salute to the Noble clan. I had a family that adopted me in a way that showed me so many things that I didn't know were possible, right? But I was smart enough to stay close as hell to that family because I knew I needed to learn more. And so if you're in an environment, if you're watching this and you're like, you know what, I don't have anybody that I can have my son spend time with, I can have my daughter spend time with, it's going to give somebody, you know, a different way of thinking, because it's not just about the money, it's about how we think overall. There were days I said things to Leon thinking he was going to be ready to go, and he said, why? And I was like, because we can. And he was like, that's dumb. And it was some of the best things he's ever said to me, because it's dumb. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, it's fun. And if I would have done those things, I wouldn't be on this live today. And it's who you surround yourself with is very important. And right now, you need to have positivity in your circle more than ever. It is negativity spewing from everywhere. And be intelligent, make a difference, change who you are. Don't weaken your position because of the color of your skin, but you don't also have to attack others just because of it, because it's a lot to learn from the right people. And the wrong people, that's a different story. But it's a lot of good people in this world. We need to understand that we can learn from everybody. Now, let me say, Bakari said facts. So, and Beverly, Beverly, complete hats off to you. And this is one, Attorney Beverly Winston is one of the top 40 attorneys, was named one of the top 40 attorneys in the nation in 2018 by the National Bar Association. And she's on this live right now, commenting more than anybody else and quoting and doing all these things because she understands the importance of this information. She could easily say, I'm in a good position, I don't have to do this. I'm gonna say it again. She's one of the top 40 attorneys, was named one of the top 40 attorneys under 40 in the nation by the National Bar Association. And she's on this live going crazy with comments because she knows how important it is.
Right.
It's you know, Baron, I see you. Garen, you know, this is my daughter's godfather. I mean, like, our family's on this. So we're definitely not going to say anything that is wrong, as far as we know.
We don't know it all, but
we don't know it all.
We know a little something. We don't know yet. We're not geniuses out here.
And that's also why inside of the, you know, Investment Education Academy platform, like Malcolm Jones has posted things to cause me to go, you know, I'm going to do some research. Other members, Jamila has posted things to make me go, you know what, let me do some research. And, you know, it's a number, I can start naming people, but long story short, Vincent, I appreciate your quotes from earlier. Everybody, please don't let this statistic that it's going to take 230 additional years for African-American money to catch up to white wealth. Please, we, as much as we can change it now, let's change it today. And so, wow, white America is reaching out to me through DMs. This is, this is great. I'm gonna have some of these conversations with people. But so, you know, again, with everything being said, this is the time we all can learn from each other. And Leon and I are dedicated to changing some things up inside of Invest in Education Academy to do what we can. So if you all want to tell us what you like, the things you need to learn, that you want to learn, you jump into Invest in Education Academy group on Facebook and just say, you know what, or shoot me a DM or Leon a direct message. It's clearly happening right now of people who want to talk further about this topic, or talk about life insurance, or talk about taxes, or talk about stock market, whatever. If it relates to making life better through wealth accumulation, we're down for that conversation.
All for it, right? You got your pick?
Yeah.
All right, you go first.
No, you go first.
What you typing over there? All right, my stock pick of the week is First Solar, ticker symbol FSLR. Today they closed at 49.50. They were up 3.5%. So First Solar, they're clearly a solar company. They make they make solar modules for homes and businesses. Stats on them: their profits the last 2.5 years averaged about 90%, and sales about 22%. Now, I will say with First Solar, their profit and sales are very volatile. Those are averages, but there are months where their sales will be, or the quarters where their sales are negative. You know, they may be negative 20%. The next quarter it's up 120%. Same thing with profits. Maybe down 20%. Next quarter maybe up 50%. So their sales and profits are very volatile. But on average, 90% profit growth, 22% sales growth. So and I will say that also the other stat is that over the last 2.5 years, solar is the third highest returning sector relative to the S&P over the last 2.5 years at 65%. Technology is 101%, and semiconductors is 132%. So solar is third. So it's one of the big winners over the last 2.5 years relative to the S&P. And again, mine is First Solar. FSLR is the symbol.
All right, so I was on the fence, and full disclosure, I had to pull one from the past. So I think I'm gonna go with Old Faithful, and I'm gonna say Qualcomm. Semiconductor industry.
Semiconductors, right? Semiconductors is a top sector the last 2.5 years at 132% gain.
So if anybody was with us, and I would suggest if you didn't see the live we did when we went into the history of Qualcomm, you go back and find it. It was Qualcomm in like a 3-year period during a run in the late 90s, early 2000, went from like a $300 and some dollar investment, I think topped out at like 37,000 in the course of less than 4 years.
It was right at the end of the dot-com boom.
Yep. So I'm still picking Qualcomm because in this sector, we haven't even begun to see the benefits of what's going to happen from 5G. And again, if you haven't seen our discussion about 5G investing, I would suggest joining our YouTube station and checking out our YouTube channel and subscribing because our content is coming there with the podcast coming soon. So I'm picking Qualcomm. It's at $84.11. Qualcomm has been a steady player, but what I like about them is they not only look at the technology, what they're doing, they look at the market positioning. Their patents, how they're, I guess, exploring new patents. And oftentimes what we don't know is this thing called patenting, like where companies will get hundreds of patents on something and they intend to never use the technology they're patenting. They just don't want the companies to have access to it. And so Qualcomm is one of those positioning, like they play chess with patents. So that's why I'm choosing Qualcomm. And I think we haven't begun to see what's going to happen in the 5G space. Although I'm kind of against 5G, but I can't. This is one of those things too. Like I'm not really for 5G, but I'm not going to be an idiot and act like the technology isn't going to take off.
Right.
But if I sign a bill, it's going to say no 5G in my neighborhood. So I'm picking Qualcomm. Ticker symbol is QCOM. And for everybody who stuck with us, this is ridiculous. The numbers and the pop-ups that are, people are, wow. Really appreciate you all. I'm gonna reply to as many of these messages as I can.
And like I just want to say, look, like I said, if you came in late and missed the first half of this live, please go back and watch the beginning, because we pointed out the huge, massive wealth gap disparity between white and Black America, and kind of why that is, and some things that can try to solve it. But the main thing we focused on was really the return of investments, the terrible return African Americans have gotten over the last 60 years relative to what white America has done, and just how huge the gap is, and how it has not. It's actually the same as it was 60 years ago as it is today. It's unbelievable. So if you haven't seen that, definitely rewind this later and go watch that piece.
I'm gonna say we just got a comment. Vincent said he already bought Qualcomm from our last live.
Oh, just off the story. Yeah.
So I mean, with this said, we have 110 comments. Lee, I'm gonna do something normally we don't immediately do, but when we jump off, if you can help me respond to some of these. Some are just statements, but it's 110 comments, and this is the time where I think we need to reply back as quick as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. So everybody, thank you. We'll be back next Wednesday. If you all, have something you want us to talk about ahead of time, go to Invest in Education Academy Facebook group and just let us know what it is. And as much as we can, we will. And the group is growing. Right now, we're at about how many members, Lee?
It's 155.
155 members in 2 months. So, I mean, we have some Jamila, out, for instance, in the last 3 weeks has invited over 50 people to the group.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely, people are seeing value, and we hope that you can make it over there and join us. And thank you for sticking with us this long in the live. Yeah, that's it.
See y'all next week.
See you next week.